All right, welcome everyone. We'll get started, and as other people join in, they can catch up on the conversation. Thanks so much for joining today. My name is Jennifer Wright. I'm the Executive Director with the Canadian Agriculture and Agriculture Human Resource Council, and I'm joined today by Kalisha Hanaram, Kevin Elder, Teresa Myra, and Lisa Bishop Spencer. Thanks so much for your interest in our conversation today. We will be focusing in on the perceptions of agriculture, engaging and connecting with youth and emerging talent. Before we get into our content, I would like to acknowledge that Canada is the home of more than 600 First Nations who have governed and managed these lands since the beginning of time. The Canadian Agricultural Human Resource Council gratefully acknowledges that we work throughout the lands of these First Nations and that our office is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. And we are coming to you from different parts of Canada today as well. So for those of you that aren't aware of who CAHRC is, we're a national nonprofit organization. We focus on human resource and workforce development for the agriculture sector. Everything we do is led by industry. We do a lot of labor market research and workforce development, skills development, and HR management. And we do things like bring together industry around the National Workforce Strategic Plan, which we'll be talking about today. Our vision really is to ensure that the industry has a motivated and accessible workforce that meets the needs of the agriculture sector. And by developing industry-led solutions for workforce development and HR management needs, we will support the industry to have that workforce they need. As I mentioned off the top, these are our panelists for today, and I'm just going to share a little bit of an intro on some of the work around the National Workforce Strategic Plan and some of the research that brought us to this conversation today before we get a chance to have each of our panelists introduce themselves and we get into the discussion. So as I mentioned, the Canadian Agriculture Human Resource Council, in partnership with the Canadian Federation of Agriculture and Food and Beverage Canada, have been working and leading the National Workforce Strategic Plan on agriculture and food and beverage manufacturing for almost 4 years now. And the whole purpose of this work is really to bring industry together from across Canada to share with each other what's working, amplify those things that are working, reduce duplication of effort, and to really come together as an industry to focus on action-based initiatives and priorities that will help our industries move past workforce shortages and labor shortages, which have become chronic at times, and ensure that we have a really strong workforce in place to support the whole value chain going forward. You can see from this pie, or as we like to refer to it, we've really tried to, as a group, attack this issue in a way that could feel a little bit unwieldy by really looking at some of the key drivers of our workforce. And so you'll see that there's different pillars in the strategy: people and workplace culture, automation and technology, perceptions and awareness, immigration and foreign workers, um, and skill development. There's also some overarching themes that you'll see around the circle that kind of touch upon all the pillars: infrastructure, competitiveness and profitability, Indigenous reconciliation and engagement, data, and equity, diversity, and inclusion. Over the last 4 years, we've done quite a bit of research in these areas, really getting a good understanding of where we're at and where some of the issues and gaps are still that need to be addressed. We also did look at how we can really provide evidence to develop action-based solutions in each of these pillars. One of the key areas that we've really looked at in response, I guess, to some of the labor shortages that we're facing is the perceptions of the industry and how we can attract in youth and that next generation of the workforce. In both CAHRC's labor market research as well as food processing's labor, skill Canada's research, we're really tracking this chronic labor shortage, and there's a lot of things that go behind that. Some of it is, a significant amount of retirees expected in the next coming years, an older workforce, and therefore needing to attract enough people in to replace that workforce. We've had things like for agriculture specifically, and to some degree, I would say food processing. Rural populations have decreased, and there's just not that workforce really local that can come in and take and work in some of the jobs as well. And the industries are changing, both on the primary production side and the food processing side. Automation, technology, AI are all coming into play. So it's a really exciting time, I would say, for the industry, although we are facing some challenges with making sure we have enough people and attracting enough people in. It is an exciting time to be part of anywhere on the value chain in food production. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen as soon as I can find there we are. Shouldn't always put me as the driver on these things. So we're going to jump into the conversation just based on some of those key points and what brought us here today. I do want to give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves and provide a little bit of information about, when you do introduce yourself, but from your vantage point, where do you see the challenges in connecting and raising awareness with some of the younger people? One thing I didn't mention actually was in our perceptions research, and Food Processing Skills Canada has done similar research, which we tried to align ours with as well. But, some really telling data came out of that where, agriculture, farmers, primary production is seen as, a good industry, trusted, that kind of thing. But when you talk about occupations and jobs and careers that you could have in the industry, our research was really telling in that a lot of respondents that were not connected with agriculture at all could not identify another job in the industry other than being a farmer. Very, obviously one of the most important, if not the most important job in our industry. But over 50% thought that there wasn't another job and no other roles in the industry. And when we dug a little bit deeper, they thought it was a trick question. So that really just kind of tells us where we're at as far as awareness of all that's going on in our sectors and some of the challenges that we may be facing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I'll start with Kevin Elder from Food Processing and Skills Canada. Kevin, if you could introduce yourself and maybe just give a few thoughts on what you feel are the key challenges that you're seeing.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, I'm at Food Processing Skills Canada, which is a very similar organization to CAHRC. We cover the next step in the value chain, which is all of Canada's 11 food and beverage manufacturing sectors. So we cover everything from pet food through to cannabis-infused beverages. Myself, I lead our labor market information team, so I've conducted the research that Jen was talking about, and it's really important to make sure that people are aware of the industry and how it actually functions. When we did our perceptions research, we found that the majority of people, regardless of their demographic background, really had no idea what takes place from when food leaves the farm post-harvest to how it turns into food on their grocery store shelves or in their restaurants. And so for us, that's the opportunity. We can fill that gap with the truth and tell the story of what the industry is like. But as Jen mentioned, rural population is declining, and that creates a massive challenge as a lot of the food and beverage manufacturers are located in rural communities. And if they're located in urban communities, they're being pushed further and further out of the city center as neighborhoods gentrify and they go, oh, I don't like that smell that comes from the facility, even if it's a bakery making lots of bread. So it's everybody's getting pushed out, and there's a real challenge as well in terms of the amount of people that would consider working in the careers that are in our industry. And that's everything, including the fun ones like working in a chocolate factory or they've got a chocolate waterfall or making beer or ice cream or cookies. It's still only about 40% of people would consider those occupations. And then when you get into the ones that have more challenges due to food safety, like working in a seafood processing facility or a meat plant, it drops to about 15% of people that would consider those careers. So when we're thinking about how we maintain Canada's place as a food superpower, we need to make sure that we're getting the people into these roles so that we can continue to produce food.
Great. Thanks so much, Kevin, and a very good perspective from the processing side. Lisa, if you could introduce yourself, and you have another perspective as well from the industry side and the more public awareness, public trust side of things.
Sure. Hi, I'm Lisa Bishop Spencer. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Centre for Food Integrity, or CCFI for short. It's great to be with you today. At CCFI, we're dedicated to earning trust in Canada's food system. So that means listening to Canadians, understanding their perceptions, and helping the sector communicate with transparency, humility, and credibility. So we bridge the gap between the food system and the public through research, communications, and collaborative initiatives. And part of that trust building has to do with the next generation because the future of the food system depends on their interest, engagement, and participation. Young people just don't see themselves in this sector. Agriculture has a bit of a perception problem and is sometimes seen as outdated or low tech or limited to life on the farm. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Today's food system is one of the most dynamic and tech driven and diverse sectors in the country, but we need to do a better job of showing that. There's a bit of a gap of visibility too. Youth don't often hear about careers in agriculture and food at their schools or see paths that are represented well in the media. And when they do, it's rarely the full picture. We include everything from data science to logistics to policy to sustainable packaging, and many of these roles fly under the radar. And the third thing is that we're up against a bit of a trust deficit. Some youth are skeptical of what they call big ag, and they're concerned about the environment or animal welfare or food equity. And these are valid concerns, and rather than shy away, we believe that we need to be ready to listen and to engage and to invite youth into the solutions because they're not indifferent, they're passionate, and we can harness that passion.
That's great, Lisa. And yeah, I couldn't agree more on a lot of what you just said there. And I think there is a real opportunity, especially as youth get to know more about what's happening across the industry around sustainability and climate change solutions and soil health and water conservation and all those things for sure. Kalisha, could you introduce yourself and you're seeing it kind of from the connecting with the young ones that might not be quite to the workforce yet, but if you could introduce yourself and share your perspective, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Kalisha Hanrahan. I'm the Think Ag manager at Agriculture in a Classroom Canada. So Agriculture in a Classroom Canada is a Canadian charitable organization with a vision to bring agriculture to every classroom, inspiring every student. My role specifically focuses on creating meaningful connections between Canadian youth and the agriculture and food sector. Through the Think Ag initiative, we are hopefully helping young people, especially those furthest from opportunity, see themselves in the industry and increase awareness of the wide range of modern, purpose-driven careers that are available. So we do this from launching career tools to collaborating with schools, career counselors, and industry partners. We work to bridge the gap between perception and opportunity. It's not necessarily that youth aren't interested in agriculture, it's that they haven't been shown, I guess, how dynamic, innovative, and impactful the sector really can be. From our vantage point, the core issue doesn't seem to be disinterest, it's disconnect. So youth, particularly those with no direct exposure to agriculture, often see the sector as you mentioned, outdated or only tied to farming. They're not aware that there's high-tech, science-based, and sustainability-driven opportunities available across the entire food system. We also face barriers on the agriculture education side of things, of outdated curriculum, lack of career resources in schools, which we are working to combat, and minimal industry presence in youth spaces. So without early engaging and relatable exposure, agriculture careers remain essentially invisible. in high schools. And that's where hopefully Think Ag comes in. So our goal is to close that awareness gap and help youth see themselves in roles that they never imagined existed in the sector. And at Think Ag, we're trying to reframe what agriculture means. So showcasing climate smart roles, tech innovation, career paths that exist in urban, suburban, and rural spaces. So, yeah, to summarize, I suppose the issue isn't just connecting youth to agriculture, it's rebuilding the narrative around what agriculture careers are, that they're diverse, they're meaningful, they're future forward, and making sure that that message reaches all youth, not just those with the existing connection to the sector.
Yeah, yeah. I know I often say that agriculture is really great at telling each other how great the sector is, but we need to reach out and get that message out to beyond the sector as well. So, and if anyone hasn't checked out the thinkag.ca site, it's a great site. Even if you're not in elementary or secondary school, there's tons of great career information there. Teresa, you bring a different perspective, kind of the next step beyond that secondary school and working with students in post-secondary that are, looking for different careers. And maybe if you could share introduce yourself as well, but also share your perspective.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Teresa Myra. I'm the Employer Relations Manager for our Work Integrated Learning and Cooperative Education program. We represent students in 29 co-op and internship programs from science to engineering, IT, sustainability. So the interesting perspective I have is I've been at Dow almost 20 years, and one of the things I've been really actively doing is connecting industry with Dalhousie students, creating opportunities, whether or not that's in person, webinars. Everyone says there's a talent need that they have and need to, drive their talent pipeline. Well, I'm here to help support you in getting that awareness to Dalhousie students. And it can be free, it can be easy, and it could be low pain. So I would encourage companies and associations that are wanting to increase awareness is connect with post-secondary, be that universities, community colleges, get on campus, get on virtually. It doesn't have to be huge commitments, but you want to get to the person that's going to help you get to all of the students to start creating brand awareness, because like Kalisha mentioned, a lot of students just don't know, and that is the same in post-secondary unless they happen to do a co-op opportunity in a research setting in rural Nova Scotia or PEI or Alberta. They wouldn't get exposure. So yeah, I would just say, get involved, get engaged with post-secondaries, post jobs, so students can see that there's opportunities. Be that part-time, full-time, co-op, non-co-op. I have a counterpart in the business school as well. So there's lots of students that can help you move your company forward. And as far as associations, being able to create that brand awareness is key, as already mentioned.
Yeah, I think those are really good points, Teresa. And, no matter where you're employing people across Canada, if you're not close enough to Dal or others, any college or university has someone similar to Teresa on staff that can really help make those connections. And I'll give a little shameless plug for some of the programming that that CAHRC and Food Processing Skills Canada offer. If you are an employer and you're looking to hire post-secondary students, we do have access to wage subsidy programs that are fairly easy to administer from an employer point of view. And I know on the agriculture side, we have really focused in on building awareness of and making connections with those students that aren't in agriculture programs to get connected with agriculture experiences while they're in school, so that they can see what their biology degree can do in agriculture or what their software engineering degree can do in agriculture, whatever it might be, and seeing some good success there. So, and I know Kevin's organization's been doing very similar things on the food and beverage manufacturing side as well. So we're going to go through just kind of a casual discussion, I guess. We've have four good experts around the table here. We'll start off by talking a little bit more about CCFI's research, and then we'll just have, if anyone has any thoughts or comments of the panelists. I know you each have kind of an area that we'll talk about, but if you have thoughts and comments that you want to contribute to the conversation at each step, don't hesitate to do so. So Lisa, maybe we can start off with you. And as you know, we've mentioned our work. We partnered with CCFI on our perceptions work, and we also partnered and built off of what food processing had done. But you also do a large amount of annual research on just public trust in general. And I'd really be curious to hear from you what that research is saying about public trust and how we can build on that information to ensure we're making those, good connections with youth and the next generation of the workforce.
Terrific. Well, happy to help. We do have a series of challenges when it comes to younger generations. What we do know is that younger generations, i.e., Gen Z and younger millennials, are more concerned about personal finances and job security, which means that they might be prioritizing stability and affordability in their career choices. And that would potentially help them overlook the food system and those careers that are there if those roles are perceived as lower paying or unstable. In terms of trust and uncertainty, we know that fewer young people believe that the food system is actually on the right track. Uncertainty about the food system overall translates into doubt about long-term career prospects in the sector, especially if young people aren't aware of the scale, the innovation, the commitments, or the economic importance of the sector. In terms of lack of awareness, many Canadians, especially younger Canadians, don't feel well informed about the food system. Only 36% say they know some about how a food pricing is determined, for instance, which is a key part of the understanding of how the sector operates. If people don't know how the system works, then they're less likely to see where they could fit in professionally. But it's not all bad news. There are opportunities. There is a higher degree of trust in farmers, scientists, and researchers among that younger population, which creates an opening to frame careers in agriculture and food, not just as jobs, but as meaningful contributions to society, to science, and to sustainability. There is strong interest among this younger population in ethics and sustainability and innovation. Young people are more likely to seek information about the environmental impact of food, value humane treatment of animals, and be curious about science and innovation in the food system. So those values align really well with many of the emerging jobs in the sector: sustainability, food tech, agri-science, animal welfare specialists, etc. We also know that millennials and Gen Z place a high importance on open and transparent communication. So framing the food sector as a place where transparency and integrity and community values matter could really increase the appeal of jobs in the sector as an employer. So for us, the strategic takeaways from all this information is that the sector should be positioning careers as purpose-driven, highlighting the roles in those values of health, sustainability, innovation, food security, and showcase the scale and diversity of opportunities beyond farming to science, tech, logistics, data, policy, etc. The other important part would be to align messaging with those values that youth hold dear, like affordability, community contribution, environmental stewardship, and communicate through channels and messengers that they trust, including the farmers themselves, scientists, and peers in the sector. And lastly, I think it would be important to sort of address gaps in understanding with stories and visuals that make the system more visual and visible and relatable.
I think those are all, excellent points, and thanks so much for sharing. And as we live in the time that we do, where affordability is top of mind, and where your food comes from, and buying Canadian, and all of these things are more and more important. I think some of the things you've pointed out are really good ways to message out about all the amazing opportunities we have across the value chain, and that you know, you can get involved and have a good career and a well-paying one, and also help contribute to you know, protecting Canadians' food supply and our sustainability as well. Now,
Right.
Kevin, I've mentioned that you've Food Processing Skills Canada also did some similar research, and I'd be really curious for you to share a little bit about where from your research and your time in the work that you do, you see some opportunities for us, you know, kind of building off of what CCFI is hearing as well.
Yeah, it's what Lisa said is almost exactly the same as what we saw, just especially looking at the different generations, that some of the gaps that exist and how you can use that information to make sure that you're being able to keep the staff that you currently have and bring in new ones. And so one of the interesting breaks that we noticed was we asked respondents from, we went surveyed Generation Z all the way through to baby boomers, and asked them if they expect to make friends at work. And there's a clear line between, we broke millennials into two categories, younger millennials and older millennials. And the line is there. Older millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers don't expect to make friends at work. Less than half respondents said that they don't do that. It was all in the 40% range. And then younger millennials and Generation Z, it was 60%, 65% that expect to make friends at work. And part of that is that when the older you are, the more established your social networks are. But just in terms of that, when you're trying to bring people in, it's, as Lisa said, you've got to meet them where they are and give them what they're looking for. So if I'm saying, geez, I've got a lot of retirements, how am I going to like attract new people to my plant? It's appealing to that social aspect that we saw as well in our survey. I think it was 70% of Generation Z had told us that they want to work for an employer that is aware of the issues that are facing the world, be those social or environmental, and are trying to do their bit. And that's not expecting like a meat manufacturer or a brewery to solve peace in the Middle East or climate change. It's that saying, oh, you know, they have electric vehicle charging stations in the parking lot, or a bike rack, so I can park my bike there. And some of these things that are common sense in terms of saying, okay, what do people want? How can we give them that? It takes a while for people to actually get there. Like I've spoken with a pork manufacturer who said it took them far too long to realize that they should serve vegetarian options at their staff barbecue, because they were a pork plant. And like we've heard the same from auto manufacturers that took far too long to put a bike rack in because they thought the people that worked at their plant would buy their cars, but some of them don't. And so it's figure out how you can attract people in and give them the experience that they're looking for. And certainly one of the biggest advantages that both agriculture and food and beverage manufacturing have is that desire for stability. Food is a really, it's not going anywhere. We have to address some of the perceptions that Lisa raised, certainly, but everybody needs to eat. And like there was a quote I saw that said, every city in Canada is only 3 days away from a riot, because that's the average amount of food that sits in a grocery store is a 3-day supply. And so for our sector, we saw it during the pandemic. Everybody said that we were essential workers, but now it's trying to translate that, tell them more about what it is. And I always tell student groups when I'm speaking with them that every VP I've ever met or operations manager, they started on the floor. Like the food and beverage manufacturing sector is still in a time capsule for employment. It's my grandfather's employer, where you will start there and you can stay there. They will upskill you, they will train you. There is a career path that goes right to the top from the floor. And those aren't very common in today's economy. Like when you're even talking to undergraduate students, most of them have already had 5 or 6 different employers through their time as a student. And so to try to open their eyes to that opportunity. And then, as well as Lisa mentioned, the cost of living. And one of the downsides I mentioned earlier was a lot of our jobs are located in rural areas and the rural population is declining. Well, the cost of living in a rural area is far lower than the cost of living in a city, or in an urban area rather. And being able to articulate that and get people to understand that moving 100 kilometers out of Ottawa to Cornwall to work in a meat plant in Cornwall, instead of working in a similar job in Ottawa, is going to put $11,000 more in your pocket after tax every year. And when you think about what that means in terms of how you'd live your life, if you gave yourself an $11,000 raise by moving 100 kilometers away, so you can still go to a hockey game if you want to, like, there's a lot of opportunities there that just need to be articulated, as Teresa was saying. Like, if you've got a job or you've got an opportunity, tell people that so that they can know about the whole package, like what it means to live in your community and work on your farm or work in your facility.
Yeah, and I think those are very good points. And when you food production is going to happen across Canada forever. It has to. It's not like a fly-by-night industry that's, here today and gone tomorrow. And certainly from a primary production point of view, or farming, that's definitely something that's not only established in rural areas, but we're seeing growth in urban farming as well, and vertical farming, and all sorts of different technologies, and bringing that food production closer to the cities as well. And we're seeing great investments in this time of tariffs and things like that. We're seeing food manufacturing companies making announcements of investments in expanding their Canadian operations. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Teresa, you mentioned in your introduction a little bit about some of the things that companies can do to connect in with students. You're, kind of at that connector between students that are almost in that workforce ready. They're getting work experience while they're in school. They're looking for different options and different things. Maybe you could share a little bit about your experience and what you've seen work in how employers, large and small, can connect with students and expose them to jobs in agriculture and food and beverage manufacturing.
For sure. I mean, I've been doing this for quite a while. What's really surprising is sometimes when you think, oh, no one is going to apply for a job in rural Alberta, 3 hours away from a city center, and then you see 70 applications, 70.
Yeah.
Engineering students. So I think the perceptions from companies need to realize that students, if they're aware, if there's opportunity for growth, if they're the culture, I think that's a big thing. I will answer your question, but companies, it's really important for them to have a culture. You hear a lot about psychologically safe environments, work environments. What that means is it inclusive, supportive? Is there opportunities for growth? Are students getting exposed to different parts of the operation when they're at your organization working? So those are things that, we certainly talk to employers about when we connect with them or they connect with us. From a student perspective, I think, we have to realize too that, housing is a huge issue. So I've said this to many companies in rural parts of the country. If you're thinking about your succession planning and your talent pipeline, you need to be thinking about housing. Some companies will work with a local motel and rent out a room or two, and so they're offering that as part of the job description.
Yeah.
When they're posting their jobs, making sure they're using inclusive language. My team can help with that. They're talking about the social responsibility that the company and those purpose-driven pieces that was already mentioned that are so important. Companies come on campus all the time to do, sometimes we have food trucks come and do a lunchtime pop-up. We've had many companies, Tesla being one, coming in, bringing their vehicles. We've had companies out of Quebec bringing some of their toys, I like to call them, all their skidoos and ATVs. And so there's lots of different things companies can do. It doesn't always have to be on campus as well. Anytime you can create an opportunity to create awareness about the sector, I'm happy to help with that. I think students in general just have no idea. If you're in a co-op program, you probably have more of an idea, a co-op or internship programs, because you get to see the wealth of opportunities that are coming forward. But there's a lot of students that are outside of that. And that's where, when we create these opportunities for students, we open them up Dal-wide to create awareness. We hear this from the construction sector as well. You know, they have talent, it's a problem. People think it's hammers and nails. It's not. There's project managers, there's tech, similar to the agriculture sector. So I think, you know, companies, I would say if you want to start attracting talent, start by posting jobs. Start with connecting with a couple of local universities across the country. Maybe select a couple that you want to work with. Don't always go to the post-secondaries that are just in the rural regions, because certainly at CAHRC, we have over 21,000 students. 62% of our students come from outside Nova Scotia and 22% are international. And we have reciprocating agreements with University of Prince Edward Island, St. FX. Those are all rural areas, so their students are coming in to us in year 3 in engineering. So I think not being so narrowed in your thinking when you're thinking about attracting talent. I think we have huge opportunities to create awareness. I say this to almost every industry sector I work with. Come work with me. I'm here to work and help you expose and create brand awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And, you know, interesting point you bring up around the housing issue. As I was mentioning with our wage subsidy program, we're really focused on connecting non-ag students with those agriculture experiences. And as we were doing our infrastructure research, which we'll have a webinar that will focus in on some of those findings in the coming weeks. But as we were doing that and seeing the results about the challenges with housing and things like that, we were also helping students find housing because they had gotten a job in rural Canada for their co-op. So we were kind of living it real time, which was interesting. But certainly, yeah, a lot of opportunities. And the more we can do the connection and get those experiential learning, work integrated learning opportunities. Certainly, you know, we're seeing more and more people that work in different aspects of agriculture and food and beverage manufacturing starting to really use social media as a platform to share kind of what works in their areas as well. So lots of things that can be done to help make those connections. And Kalisha, from the Think Ag point of view, you mentioned a little bit about you know, really trying to step out of you know, delivering programming in the agriculture areas and really trying to make those connections beyond our, you know, the typical audience maybe that you've worked with in the past. What are you seeing as far as what's working there and what others might learn from the work that you're doing? As we know that talent pipeline, you know, every industry is looking to develop the talent pipeline from kindergarten on, basically. And so you're seeing that work regularly and getting into schools that, you know, might be more urban or that kind of thing. So what do you see that's working there?
So thinkag.ca is designed specifically to reach youth who don't already see themselves in agriculture. Ideally, that's our goal. So we're not preaching to the choir. We're reaching students, hopefully, that love science, innovation, food, sustainability, tech, business, etc. But they have no idea how those passions could lead to a career in agriculture. We do that successfully right now by offering a career pathway tool, which is how we like to think of our ThinkAg website, as a career pathway tool that connects the students' skills and interests, not just their farm background, if they have one, to agri-food careers. We like to feature diverse role models through storytelling and digital content that reflect real people shaping the sector. We like to partner with organizations, post-secondary institutions, to embed agriculture content where students are already exploring careers, so not just in agriculture exclusive spaces, and ensuring that our current content is curriculum aligned, modern, mobile friendly, and available to educators and career counselors across Canada, which we're constantly chasing, making sure that that's up. It gets quicker and quicker these days, making sure that it's updated, curriculum aligned, mobile friendly, and accessible. From my perspective, and I think I'm going to echo a lot of what people have already said on this call, the next step would be scaling all this further and kind of working together within industry. So I think most of this has already been done to some capacity. So maybe it's collaboration within industry to amplify this, or, you know, just more awareness surrounding it. But we need more full buy-in from the education system. So schools and school boards across Canada, they must understand the importance of agriculture and food systems and fully support the integration of agri-food careers into career development programming. So agriculture needs to be treated as a foundational future-focused sector on par with things like STEM, trades, or healthcare. So commonplace in schools. We're also missing, or it's patchy, I shouldn't say we're missing, that clear bridge from high school to post-secondary, which I know has been brought up a couple times already. So there is a disconnect between classroom interest and real world opportunity. So we need structured pathways and incentives that other countries are already doing, like paid work terms, travel bursaries, early recruitment programs, maybe agri-career co-ops, and they are taking place in some places within Canada. So again, maybe collaboration so that we don't reinvent the wheel, no duplication of efforts, and just amplification of what's already going on to help youth transition confidently into post-secondary and employment into the sector. So a little bit more of a smooth transition. More direct engagement in urban classrooms and among newcomer youth. So not just those who are in rural or ag adjacent communities, equity of outreach, mentorship opportunities, and local role model connections, which our provincial members really try to encourage. So it can help youth visualize a clear, relatable path forward, especially when they don't see themselves reflected in traditional narrative of ag careers. And I guess finally, the industry needs to be involved earlier. So again, what our provincial members do try to encourage as well, making partnerships with local producers or people in agriculture in their respective provinces to go in and make those presentations in school so that students can really see a role model face to face and they can picture themselves in agriculture by an example or a mentor. So showing up in schools, supporting experiential learning, offering classroom speakers, field trips to farms, and co-creating programs with youth at the table, not just about them. Yeah. So real impact will happen when youth feel seen, heard, and valued by the sector, I think. And the biggest shift will come when agriculture is not seen as a niche, but as a sector that intersects with all the values that young people care about, such as climate, tech, innovation, and community impact.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think those are all really good points. And I know many of you have heard me tell a few stories about my son. I grew up on a farm in southwestern Ontario, and I live in downtown Ottawa now. And my kids, especially my son, has always wanted to be in agriculture. And he goes to school downtown. And when he talked to his guidance counselor in grade 7 and said he wanted to work in agriculture, she just laughed and said, "Oh, of course, you don't want to go to school. You just want to be a lazy farmer." And he came home really quite upset. And I had a chance to talk to her. She knows a little bit different now, but you know, that's only one person, and we do have a lot of work to do to get that message out, and especially in a field where there's, you know, a lot of career counselors, a lot of guidance counselors are being inundated with information from every industry as our workforce across Canada ages in every industry. You know, everyone's trying to get their information out. But one of the, you know, we talk about engaging. Again, my son at school, they had, I think in grade 6 or grade 8, now he already was looking at agriculture, but they had a human library day where they had different people come in and kids could check out their human and talk to them and learn about what they did and about their life. And there was a farmer that came in, and he was the only one that checked out the farmer. No one else checked him out. But he had a really great conversation with them for about a half an hour, and he was able to convey to my son about the opportunities and about what he does day to day and how he's at the market on the weekends. And to this day, my son will go by and like look for him, look for his stand and that kind of thing. So it doesn't need to be, I think we need a lot of different pieces. And I think everyone around the table here and certainly our work through the National Workforce Strategic Plan is really trying to build that collaboration and amplification of the work that's happening. But we need the big campaigns, and we also need the on the ground making connections, having conversations, not being too afraid to you know, talk to people that might not understand exactly where their food comes from, and, you know, sharing information about and sharing some facts, and sharing some opportunities about careers and things like that as well. Lisa, I know you have a campaign that's going to be starting soon as well, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of what's gone in behind the scenes to ensure that we're providing some of that information out in spaces that people might not always be looking for career or job or industry information.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to launch the Canada's Food System, Our Food, Our Future campaign. It's really a public awareness initiative that's sector wide. So it's not a CCFI branded initiative. It's really being branded on behalf of the entire sector. And what the aim of this is to really to build the food system up in the minds of Canadians to the point where it has the same degree of importance as the education system, the healthcare system, and really start to bring the importance of Canadian food and the people who produce it and bring it to you as being important economic contributors. So there are two real elements to it. There's that public awareness side, building that awareness about all kinds of issues, innovation, sustainability, and employment, in terms of people not, you know, finding out about jobs that they might not normally associate with agriculture and what those bring to you know, to the forefront with respect to opportunities. And then the other part is sort of that policy element, ensuring that the food system is at the table when big decisions are being made, because so often we're treated as quaint, right? This is a common lament. We're treated as quaint, and we really need to demonstrate that we are bigger than that, but not so big that we've lost the values that people attach to us. So it's a fine line. So the exercise of the initiative, the work of the initiative is really to build that understanding among Canadians and among policymakers that the Canadian food system is important and people need to pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. And I know I've seen a little preview of what's coming, and I think it's going to be really well received, and really provide, as you say, good information and education, but also expand thoughts about, you know, what you can do. And, you know, when I talk to people and you say you can be a drone operator and work in agriculture, they look at me like, what? What are you talking about? You know, there's self-driving tractors. There's, you know, so much AI that's used, and robotics already. And it's only, like, as I said at the beginning, we're really at a interesting time, I think, across the value chain where we're seeing automation technology, AI, digitalization all come in very quickly and be adopted quickly, and changes the skill sets that we need, changes some of the jobs that we have, but certainly doesn't change the need for the people, and exciting careers and good paying careers as well. Does anyone have any kind of final thoughts or anything to share, and in some of the comments that we've had through the conversation? We were getting to the end of our hour, so want to make sure that we have everything covered. Kevin.
Yeah, just to build on what's been said already, it's really about telling people how our industry actually functions. Like you were talking about the drone operators and those sort of things. We did an analysis of the occupations that are in food and beverage manufacturing, and there's 350 different occupations. And there's only in Canada, there's about 510 recognized occupations that the government tracks. So that's over 2/3 of all the occupations that exist in Canada are in food and beverage manufacturing. So pretty much anything that you can imagine yourself doing, it's there. And like the 14% of electrical mechanics work in food and beverage manufacturing and those sorts of things. And then back to the environmental aspect that we know the youth are looking for, really pounding the drum about how sustainable Canada's system is already. Like we heard it in the ag debate last week. It gets mentioned at almost every conference, but for a lot of the stuff that's grown on the prairies, it can be shipped to Europe at a fraction of the greenhouse gases of it being grown in Europe. And so that's sort of for the stability of the Canadian industry is it's more environmentally friendly for France to get its grain from Saskatchewan than from France. And it doesn't make sense until you dig into the numbers and see really how sustainable Canadian agriculture is, and it's a natural advantage that we have. And so making sure that people know about that so that they can engage in the industry and go, okay, it's more technologically advanced than I thought, it's more sustainable than I thought, and people are paying attention to this, and that we're tuned in to the conversations that they expect us to be engaging with.
Yeah, I think those are really good points. Very good points indeed. And there's so many examples of things like that where, again, getting that information out. And, one thing I think we have we kind of know what we need to do. We know where we need to go. It's now taking the action to make those connections. And I think there is growing interest, and it is starting to have an impact with some of like the post-secondary students, but we still have a lot of work to do to make those broader connections and raise awareness about what the whole value chain has to offer, and not only how we function, but what we have to offer as far as careers and skill development and lifestyle and all that kind of thing as well. So anyone else have some other comments? Lisa?
I just want to remind folks that it's not just about recruitment, it's about relevance, right? We need to show these young people that the sector aligns with their values. This is a very values-driven generation. So if we can align with their values and their skills and their hopes for the future, we'll inspire purpose. And so it's more than a talent gap, it's a storytelling gap almost. And if we can close that, we don't just fill jobs, but we create that relevance and that opportunity there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think those are very good points. And making those connections and reaching out, I think, is also very important. And again, not having to worry all the time about it being very formal or whatever it might be. It's just, not being afraid to have the conversations and reach out to people. Teresa?
I was just going to add on to what Lisa said. I think just, getting the awareness out and bringing the values and that work-life balance, like Kevin mentioned. I think all of those things are really, really important, not only when you're creating that awareness, but when you're posting jobs, including those on your job postings. And that's something that we educate employers on when they're posting jobs for students, is show those important pieces that we know are important to youth. So yeah, if you want to hire a student, I'm actually also the Atlantic rep here, so I'm happy to connect you to anyone in Atlantic. I sit on the Seawell National Board as the Atlantic rep, so happy to be that connection for anyone here in Atlantic. And yeah, if you want some awareness, come to Dell, I'll help you out.
That's great. No, that's excellent. So it looks like we're almost at the end of our time. There's been some good comments in the webinar chat about different ways to connect in, and the importance of also bridging and connecting new Canadians and in with the industries as well. Rebecca has also shared some of the information around our National Workforce Strategic Plan, and Teresa's shared her information for her contact as well. We can share that information out with the attendees, if that's okay with the panelists as well. We'll definitely do that. And this has been recorded, so we will be sharing this on our YouTube page as well. If you want to go back, or if you want to share the link with anyone, we'd be more than happy for you to do that. It should be up before too long, and probably next week. Before we wrap up, I just want to thank everyone for your interest. I want to thank the panelists for their insights and expertise. I think it was a really great discussion. And, every time we have this discussion, I feel like we move it forward a little bit more. And, the more that we can connect with people and get that information out, the better it's going to be and the more progress we're going to make. This is the first of 5 webinars that are part of our series to share some of the insights that we learned through the first phase of our National Workforce Strategic Plan work, where we focused a lot on researching and understanding, getting some good foundational information. The next webinar happens on Thursday, May 8th. We're going to have 2 in a row that focus on digitalization, automation, technology, AI, and jobs. Looking at the impact these things are having not only on the jobs, but on the skills that we require and how we retain and upskill the workforce that we have, as well as grow the workforce as well. The fourth one will be talking about some of the things we learned through our infrastructure and workforce attraction and retention research. When we started talking about infrastructure in the workforce, people thought we were kind of going out of our lane and weren't really sure how that connected. But certainly infrastructure plays a very important role in attracting and retaining your workforce, rural or urban. And so I think that will be a very interesting conversation. And we'll wrap things up with our 5th webinar on June 5th, which will focus on the impact or what we're seeing around North American workforce trends with the impacts of the tariffs. So thank you very much, everyone, for connecting in on this and for your interest in the conversation and in your interest in careers in agriculture and food and beverage manufacturing. We're looking forward to continuing to build our workforce, and certainly with the experts we've had around the table today, we're all in good hands, I think, with getting that information out and making sure we're building awareness of what our sectors have to offer. So thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.